We kept you alive for a reason. The words came softly, almost respectfully, as the rope tightened around the rancher's wrists. In that moment, he understood something worse than death awaited him: truth. If stories like this stay with you, subscribe for more Western Tales and leave a comment where you're listening from. The sun was still climbing when they took him. Samuel Garrett had been mending the north fence, the one that always sagged after winter. His hands were raw from wire, his back complaining. He was 43 and felt 60. The ranch had been eating him alive for years: debts, droughts, a wife who'd left, a son who wouldn't write. He heard the horses before he saw them. 6 riders, no war paint, no weapons raised. They simply appeared along the ridge like they'd been carved from the stone itself. Samuel straightened. His rifle was 20 yards away, leaning against the post. The lead rider was older, gray threading through black hair pulled tight. He gestured once. 2 younger men dismounted. They moved with precision, not rage. Samuel's hands rose instinctively. "What do you want?" No answer. They bound his wrists with leather cord, unhurried. The older man watched from his horse, his face unreadable. "You've got the wrong man," Samuel said. His voice cracked. "I haven't done anything." The older man finally spoke, his English slow and deliberate. "You are Samuel Garrett." "Yes, then we have the right man." They lifted him onto a horse. The younger men mounted, flanking him. The group turned east, away from the ranch, away from the road, toward the red hills that marked the boundary of tribal land. Samuel twisted in the saddle. "At least tell me why." The older man rode ahead. He didn't turn. "Because the law requires it." The ride lasted hours. They crossed dry creek beds and climbed through pinyon forests. No one spoke. Samuel's mind churned through possibilities: ransom, mistaken identity, revenge for some forgotten slight. But the silence around him felt heavier than anger. It felt ceremonial. By dusk, they reached a settlement tucked into a canyon. Scattered hogans, a central fire, children who stopped playing to stare. The air smelled of smoke and juniper. They dismounted. Samuel was led to a small structure at the canyon's edge, half dugout, half stone. Inside, a wool blanket, a water jug, nothing else. The older man stood in the doorway. Firelight carved shadows across his face. "You will remain here." "For how long?" "Until the council decides." "Decides what?" The man hesitated. For the first time, Samuel saw something flicker in his expression, not cruelty, but weariness. "How this ends." The door closed. Samuel heard a wooden bar slide into place. Days passed. Maybe 3, maybe 5. Time blurred. Twice a day, a woman brought food: cornmeal, dried meat, water. She never spoke. Her eyes held something Samuel couldn't name. Not pity. Not hatred. Something older. He listened to the sounds outside. Children laughing. Arguments in a language he didn't understand. Horses. Drums at night. Low and irregular, like a heartbeat with missing beats. On the 4th day, a young man entered. 20, maybe younger. Lean, with a scar across his jaw. He carried a bowl of stew but didn't set it down. "Why am I here?" Samuel asked. The young man's jaw tightened. "You should be dead." "I don't even know what I've done." "Your ignorance does not erase the debt." "What debt?" The young man set the bowl down hard, sloshing broth. "The elders want to keep you. They say the law demands waiting." "I say the law demands blood." Samuel's throat tightened. "Whose blood?" The young man stepped closer. His voice dropped. "Do you know the name Nakai Bidziel?" Samuel shook his head. The young man's eyes flashed. "Of course you don't." He left without another word. That night, Samuel heard voices raised in anger outside. Not close, but echoing through the canyon. He pressed his ear to the stone wall. 2 voices, both male. One older, measured. One younger, sharp. The younger voice, the man from earlier, was shouting. Samuel caught fragments. "How many more seasons?" "The law is clear." The older voice responded, steady and low. Samuel couldn't make out words, only cadence. Then silence. Samuel lay on the blanket, staring at the ceiling. The weight in his chest wasn't fear anymore. It was something worse. Certainty that he was part of something he couldn't see. On the 7th day, they brought him out. The council sat in a semicircle near the central fire. 7 elders, men and women both. The older man who'd captured him sat at the center. To his right, a woman with silver hair and a face like weathered stone. To his left, a man missing his right arm. Samuel stood before them, wrists still bound. The silver-haired woman spoke first. Her voice was quiet, but absolute. "You are Samuel Garrett, son of William Garrett. Yes, your father claimed land east of the canyon. The land where the Twin Rocks stand." Samuel nodded. His father had homesteaded there 40 years ago, long before Samuel was born. The ranch had passed to him when the old man died. That land, the woman continued, was taken by force. A man named Captivity lived there with his family. Your father burned his home, killed his cattle, drove them into the hills. Samuel's stomach dropped. "I didn't know. You did not need to know. The deck does not care." The one-armed man leaned forward. "Captivity survived. He made a claim under our law. Your father ignored it. He died before the claim could be answered. So you take me instead?" The older man Samuel now knew him as the council leader spoke. "The law of K requires balance. Blood for blood, land for land, life for life. But it also requires harmony. These laws do not always agree." Samuel shook his head. "I don't understand." The silver-haired woman's eyes were hard. "Neither do we. That is why you are still alive." They returned him to the dugout. But this time, the door was left open. Samuel sat in the doorway as dusk fell, watching the settlement. A young girl carried water from the spring. 2 men repaired a wagon wheel. The young warrior with the scar stood near the fire, speaking with others. His gestures were sharp, angry. The woman who brought food approached. This time she lingered. "You wonder why some of us hate you," she said in English. Her accent was thick but clear. Samuel looked up. "Yes, because you are the 4th. His blood went cold. "4th what?" "4th man brought here under the old claim. The others did not leave. What happened to them?" She stared at the fire. "They refused what the law required. So the law consumed them. I don't." "You will." She walked away, leaving the bowl at his feet. The next morning, the council leader came alone. He sat outside the dugout, cross-legged on the ground. He placed a pipe between them, but didn't light it. "My name is Hasty-and-so," he said. "You may use it." Samuel shifted. His wrists were unbound now. He rubbed at the marks. "Why am I here, Hasty-and-so?" "Really?" The old man looked toward the canyon rim. "Because the law is a living thing. It remembers even when we forget." The woman said, "I'm the 4th. "Yes. What happened to the others?" Hasty-and-so was silent for a long moment. Then, "The first man came 12 years ago, son of another settler. We held council for 3 moons. He was offered a path. He refused. He tried to escape. We did not stop him. And he made it 5 miles. His horse threw him at a ravine. He broke his neck." Samuel's chest tightened. "The second? 8 years ago. He lasted longer. He listened. He understood the claim. But when the time came, he could not bear the cost. He took his own life." Samuel felt cold, despite the rising heat. "And the third?" Hasty-and-so's face darkened. "The third was a coward. He agreed to everything. He lied to our faces. When we released him, he returned with others, men with guns. 3 of our people died before we drove them away. So why keep trying?" Hasty-and-so finally looked at him. "Because the law does not die when we do. If we abandon it, we abandon ourselves." He stood, joints cracking. "Tonight you will join us at the fire. You will hear the full claim." The fire was large, crackling with juniper and mesquite. The entire settlement gathered. Children sat at the edges. Elders formed a ring. Samuel was placed among them, not bound but watched. Hastian So stood. He began to speak in his own language, then shifted to English. Nakai Bidziel was born in the year the soldiers came to Canyon de Chelly. He was a child then. He survived the long walk. He returned with his family to rebuild. He claimed land by the Twin Rocks. It was good land. Water ran through it. His family grew corn, raised sheep. The fire popped. Smoke curled into the dark. William Garrett arrived in the year of the dry summer. He wanted the land. Nakai Bidziel refused to leave. Garrett came with papers. Papers mean nothing here. So Garrett came with fire. Samuel's hands clenched. Nakai's home burned. His wife and daughter were inside. They did not escape. His son was 12. The boy ran. Garrett's men shot him in the back. A woman near the fire began to weep, quiet and restrained. Nakai survived. He came to us. He invoked the law of Naye, the blood debt. He had the right. But he also invoked Jose, the restoration of balance. These laws are not the same. One demands death. The other demands repair. The council could not choose. Hastian So looked directly at Samuel. So the council made a new law. The debt would pass to the son of the killer. But the son would be given a choice the father was not. He could offer restitution. He could accept the burden of the past. Or he could refuse. If he refused, the blood debt would take its course. Samuel's voice came out hoarse. What kind of restitution? The silver-haired woman spoke. The land, your ranch. The water, everything your father took. And if I give it? Then you live, she said. But you live here, with us, under our law. You tend the land as one of us. You help rebuild what was burned. You become a bridge, not a thief. Samuel's mind reeled. And if I refuse? No one answered. They didn't need to. The young warrior with the scar stepped forward. His voice was cold. Then I invoke my right as kin of Nakai Bidziel. I claim the blood debt. And you die before the sun rises. Murmurs rippled through the gathering. The one-armed elder raised a hand. Kinalda has not yet been performed. The final council has not met. The law requires time. The young warrior Bidziel, Samuel realized, named for his grandfather, snarled. Time is a gift we have given 3 times. It has brought us nothing but insult. It has brought us one more chance at Haze. Hastian So said quietly. That is not nothing. Bidziel turned and walked into the dark. Samuel couldn't sleep. He sat outside the dugout, staring at the stars. Footsteps approached. The woman who brought food sat beside him. Her face was shadowed. You are afraid, she said. Yes. Good. Fear means you understand. Samuel exhaled. What's your name? Ayoy. Did you know Nakai Bidziel? He was my grandfather's brother. Samuel looked at her. So why aren't you demanding my death? Ayoi's expression was unreadable. Because my grandmother told me something before she died. She said, if we feed the anger forever, we starve ourselves. But Bidziel doesn't believe that. Bidziel lost his father young. He never knew peace. Only the stories of fire. She paused. But the law is not only his to speak. What happens now? Now you learn. Tomorrow you work. You meet the land you never knew was stolen. You meet the people you never knew were wronged. And then, at the new moon, the council decides whether you are worth keeping alive. Samuel's throat was tight. And if I run? Iowe's voice turned hard. Then you prove you are your father's son. And Bidziel will hunt you. He will not stop. And the law will stand with him. She stood. Sleep if you can. The sun does not wait for guilt. The next days were the hardest Samuel had ever known. They woke him before dawn. Bidziel silent, seething led him to the fields. Samuel worked alongside the others, hauling water, planting, mending fences. His hands blistered, his back screamed. No one spoke to him unless necessary. But they spoke around him, in their own language. In English when they forgot he was there. He heard fragments of the old stories. The long walk, the return, the broken promises, the hunger, the rebuilding. He learned the names of the dead. Nakai's wife, Deed Yatsi. His daughter, Azaziah Guichi. His son, Ashki Yatsi. He learned that Ashki had been 13, not 12. That he'd been shot in the back while carrying water. He learned that William Garrett had claimed self-defense. That no one was ever charged. On the 5th day, an elder approached him in the field. "The one-armed man. You work hard," the elder said. Samuel wiped sweat from his face. "I don't have a choice." "You always have a choice. You could refuse. You could sit in silence until the moon turns." "And then?" "Then Bidzil would have his way." Samuel leaned on the shovel. "What would you do if you were me?" The elder looked at the land. "I lost my arm in a fight with settlers. 30 years ago, they took my cattle, burned my home. I tracked them. I fought." He held up the stump. "The pain was unbearable, but it ended. The anger, that is still with me. Every day. So you want revenge?" "No," the elder said quietly. "I want to stop carrying this weight. But I do not know how." He walked away, leaving Samuel alone in the field. The nights were worse than the days. Samuel lay awake, listening to the sounds of the settlement. Drums, prayers, the low murmur of the elders debating in the distance. On the 8th night, Ayoi came to him. "The council meets tomorrow," she said. "They will ask you to speak." "And say what?" "The truth." "I don't know what that is anymore." She crouched beside him, her voice softened. "Then let me tell you what the others will not. The first man who came, he was like you. Afraid, ashamed. He worked the fields. He learned the language. But when the council asked him to take the final step, he refused." "What step?" "To become one of us, not in name and law. To take a new name, spoken by our elders. To accept that his life no longer belonged to him alone. To live under the watch of the people his blood wronged." She paused. "It is not slavery. It is accountability." Samuel's voice cracked. "And if I agree? Then you live, but you live here. Your ranch becomes tribal land. Your wealth means nothing. Your past is not erased. It is worn like a scar. You will see Bidzil's face every day. You will eat with families who lost everything. You will carry that until you die." "And the second man, why did he take his own life?" Ioi's face darkened. "Because he understood the cost. And he could not bear it." She stood. "Tomorrow you choose. But know this, if you choose to live, you choose a life that will never be easy. If you choose to run, you will die hunted. If you choose death, Bidzil will grant it cleanly. And if I give them the land but leave?" Ioi's eyes were cold. "Then you are the third man. And we will not make that mistake again." The council met at dawn. Samuel stood before them, wrists unbound, filthy from the fields. Hasty and So gestured for him to sit. Samuel lowered himself to the ground, cross-legged. The silver-haired woman spoke first. "You have worked the land. You have seen the people. You have heard the claim. Now we ask, do you accept the debt of your blood?" Samuel's throat was dry. "I do." Bidzil stepped forward, his face hard. "Words are air." The others also accepted. Then they ran, or broke, or betrayed us. Hasty and So raised a hand. "Let him finish." Samuel looked at the elders. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to trust me. My father did a terrible thing. I profited from it. I lived on stolen land. I never asked where it came from." He paused. "I can't undo that. But I can answer for it." The one-armed elder leaned forward. "How?" "I'll give you the ranch. All of it. The land, the water, the buildings. I'll sign whatever papers you need, and I'll stay. I'll work. I'll live by your law." Silence fell. The elders exchanged glances. Then Ayoi spoke. She had been standing at the edge of the circle. Now she stepped forward. "There is something he does not know." Hasty and So's jaw tightened. "Ayoi, He deserves to know. They all deserve to know. She turned to Samuel. Her voice was steady but heavy. The law we invoke is not the only law. There is another. An older one. Samuel's pulse quickened. What law? The law of Nalblushi. The Skinwalker law. The law of the one who carries the guilt of the dead. Hastian So closed his eyes. The silver-haired woman looked away. Ayoi continued. When a blood debt is too great to be paid, when the harm cannot be undone, the law allows a transfer. The guilty one or their blood takes the burden of the dead into themselves. They carry it. They live with it. They become the vessel of memory. Samuel felt cold. What does that mean? It means, Ayoi said quietly, that if you stay, you do not just work the land. You take Nakai's place. You carry his grief, his rage, his loss. You become the wound that never heals. You live not as Samuel Garrett, but as the man who must always remember what was taken. Bitziel's voice was low. And you live knowing that some of us will never stop hating you. That I will never stop seeing my grandfather's son bleeding in the dirt. That every day you will wake and know you are the proof of our pain. Samuel's breath came shallow. The others, did they know this? Hastian So nodded slowly. The first man learned it at the final council. He ran that night. The second man accepted it. He lived for 6 moons. Then he walked into the canyon and never returned. We found his body at the bottom. And the third? The third swore he would accept it. He lied. He brought guns instead. Samuel's hands shook. So this is the choice. Live as a ghost. Or die free. Ayoi's voice was soft. Or die a coward. Those are the only paths. The council gave him until sunset. Samuel walked to the edge of the canyon. The wind was sharp, carrying dust and the scent of sage. Below, the land stretched red and infinite. He thought of his father, William Garrett. A hard man, silent and mean. Samuel had never questioned how they'd gotten the ranch. He'd simply accepted it. He thought of the son he'd lost touch with. A boy he'd failed in 1,000 small ways. He thought of the 3 men who had stood where he stood, who had faced the same impossible choice. Footsteps behind him. Samuel turned. Bitziel stood a few paces back, arms crossed. Have you decided? The young man asked. Not yet. Bitziel stared at the horizon. You should run. I would prefer to hunt you. Why? Because then the law is simple. Blood for blood, clean. Samuel turned back to the canyon. Nothing about this is clean. No, Bitziel said quietly. It is not. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Bitziel continued. My grandfather died when I was 9. He never recovered from what your father did. He drank. He raged. He wept. He taught me to hate before he taught me to ride. He paused. I carry him every day. His pain, his shame. I did not choose this. But it is mine. Samuel looked at him. And if I stay, will that change anything? Bitziel's eyes were hard. No, but it will mean the debt is answered. And maybe my children will not have to carry it. He walked away, leaving Samuel alone on the edge. Samuel returned to the fire as the sun touched the horizon. The council waited. The entire settlement watched. Hastian So stood. Samuel Garrett, you have heard the law. You have seen the cost. What is your answer? Samuel's voice was steady. I'll stay. The silver-haired woman leaned forward. You understand what you accept? I carry the debt. I carry the memory. I live not as myself, but as proof of what was done. I become the scar. Bitziel's jaw clenched. And when you break? When the weight is too much? Samuel looked at him directly. Then I'll break where you can see it. I won't run. I won't lie. And I won't kill myself in secret. If I fail, you'll know. The one-armed elder spoke. And the land? It's yours. I'll sign the deed tomorrow. Everything. Hastian So looked around the circle. One by one, the elders nodded. Even Bitziel, his face tight, inclined his head. Hastian So raised his hand. Then by the law of Naye and the law of Hosea, We accept your answer. At the new moon, you will take a new name. You will be marked. You will live among us under our law until death." He paused. "But know this, Samuel Garrett. If you betray this oath, there will be no fourth chance. The law will take you. And Bidziel will not wait for permission." Samuel nodded. "I understand." Ayoy stepped forward. She held a bundle of sage. She lit it, the smoke curling upward, and passed it over Samuel's head, his shoulders, his hands. "You are smoke and ash," she said quietly. "What was burned? What remains? What cannot be forgotten?" The days blurred into weeks. Samuel worked the land. He learned the language haltingly. He took a new name, Doli Balii, he who returns the broken. He lived in a small hogan at the canyon's edge. He ate with the families. He listened to the elders. He carried water, mended fences, planted corn. Bidziel did not speak to him, but he did not attack him. Samuel saw the young man watching sometimes, eyes dark and unreadable. Ayoy brought him food most evenings. They spoke little, but her presence was steady. One night, 2 months after the council's decision, Samuel asked her, "Does it get easier?" She was silent for a long time. Then, "No, but you learn to carry it better." "Do they trust me?" "Some do, some never will." She looked at him. "But trust is not what the law requires. Accountability is." Samuel nodded. He stared at the fire. "I dream about him sometimes." "The boy, Ashki. What do you dream?" "That I'm the one who shot him. That I'm my father. That I pull the trigger and he falls and I just ride away." Ayoi's voice was soft. "Then you are beginning to understand." At the new moon, the council gathered again. Hasty and So called Samuel forward. The old man held a clay bowl filled with dark liquid ink made from charcoal and oil. "The mark," he said, "on your wrist, so that you never forget." "So that we never forget." Samuel held out his arm. Hasty and So dipped the thin bone needle into the ink and began to carve a symbol into Samuel's inner wrist. The pain was sharp, clean. When he finished, the mark was simple, 3 lines intersecting, a broken arrow. A path cut short. "This is the sign of Nalblushi," Hasty and So said. "You are bound, you are marked, you are one of us now. But you will never be free." Samuel looked at the mark. Blood seeped around the ink. He pressed a cloth to it. "I know." 5 years passed. Samuel grew older. His hair grayed. His hands became gnarled from labor. He learned to speak the language well enough to tell stories. He taught the children how to repair tools. Bidziel married. He had a daughter. He still did not speak to Samuel, but the hatred in his eyes had dulled to something colder, more tired. Ayoi's grandmother died. Samuel helped dig the grave. He stood at the edge of the ceremony, silent and apart. One evening, Hasty and So came to Samuel's hogan. The old man was frail now, his steps slow. "Walk with me," he said. They walked to the twin rocks, the land Samuel's father had claimed, the land that now belonged to the tribe. Hasty and So sat on a stone. "I am dying," he said simply. Samuel said nothing. "I wanted to tell you something before I go. Something the council never spoke aloud." "What?" "We did not think you would survive." Samuel looked at him. "We thought you would run like the first, or break like the second, or betray us like the third." Hasty and So's voice was quiet. "But you stayed. You carried the weight. You became the scar. Does that mean I've paid the debt?" Hasty and So shook his head. "The debt is not paid. It will never be paid." "That is the law," Samuel exhaled. "Then why tell me this?" "Because you need to know that living was the hardest choice. Dying would have been easy. For you, for us, for everyone." The old man looked at the horizon. "But you chose the path that keeps the wound open. The path that forces us all to remember. That is not mercy. It is not forgiveness. It is simply truth." He stood, joints cracking. "And truth is the only thing that does not fade." Hasty and So died 3 days later. Samuel helped carry his body to the burial site. He stood at the edge of the gathering, marked and silent, as the elders sang the old songs. Bidziel stood across the circle. For the first time their eyes met. Bidziel did not look away, neither did Samuel. There was no forgiveness in that gaze, no reconciliation, only acknowledgement that this was the world they lived in, that the past could not be undone, that survival was its own kind of suffering. Samuel lived another 15 years. He grew old. He taught Bidziel's daughter how to plant corn. He told the young ones stories of the land, stories he'd learned in his years among them. He never left the canyon. He never saw his son again. He never owned anything. He lived as Doli Balie, the man who carried the broken pieces. When he died, they buried him at the edge of the settlement, not among the full members of the tribe. But not in exile. On his grave, they placed a single stone, no name, no date, just the mark, 3 lines intersecting. A broken arrow, a path cut short. Years later, a traveler passed through the canyon. He saw the unmarked grave and asked Bidziel's daughter, now grown, who was buried there. She looked at the stone for a long moment. Then she said, "The man who learned that living is not the same as being forgiven." The traveler frowned. Was he good? She shook her head. He was necessary. The wind picked up, carrying dust and ash across the red hills. The woman turned back toward the settlement, leaving the grave behind. The stone remained. The mark remained. The law remained. And the land, as always, remembered.
Thanks for watching this story till the end. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And before you go, check out these other amazing Western stories waiting for you next. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you on the next ride.